Hello, Bill here at Pale Horse Survival and Tactical. Back for another episode, and I thought I'd do something a little different today. I'm going to take a few minutes to discuss knife sharpening, knife maintenance, and some of the different knife grinds. There seems to be a little bit of confusion. I lurk around on some of the bushcrafting forums online, and I see guys talking about knife grinds and stuff, and a lot of times they compare the full flat grind to a Scandi grind or a Scandinavian grind, and they have the two confused. So anyways, I want to talk about that, and knife sharpening, a few little tricks that I use, and also using a leather belt as a strop to polish the blade. So anyways, we'll start out with taking a look at a few different grinds. I brought a few different knives here. These are my personal knives, and of course you guys will recognize this one here. This is my this knife I've used in a number of videos, doing the bow drill videos, and this is my good old trusty $8 flea market knife that I've used the heck out of for years and years, and it's really served me well. I absolutely love this knife. So we'll take a look at the grind here. And the grind is, see if you guys can see that. This is where the grind or the taper begins on this particular knife here, and this is what you call a high flat or a saber grind. See how the grind starts right here and then tapers on both sides down to the edge. And I happen to absolutely love the high flat or saber grind. It serves me well. It's a good grind, a very good multi-purpose grind for bushcrafting, batoning, chopping. It's pretty durable. That is the saber. This little kit that I put together here. I'm not real big on buying mainstream stuff, so I have a tendency to put my own little kits together. And this sheath here I found at the flea market. It has a caduceus on here, which signifies that it was some sort of medical kit, and I'm not sure what it would have held, but I've repurposed it. I think I paid $2 for this nice leather sheath. And so anyways, it houses my Victorinox trekker, and a big 5" by 1/2" ferro rod, and a little mini mag light. I have a lot of little kits I'll do videos on as time goes on. Okay, so here, this is the Victorinox trekker, and if you look at this grind here, this is, now it's flat all the way down. There's no taper. There's no secondary taper on this. That is a full flat grind. Now there's guys online that are calling this a Scandi grind or a Scandinavian grind. This is not a Scandinavian grind. This is a full flat. It has a continuous taper down both sides from the spine down to the edge. That's a full flat. And I just happened to bring my Mora. This is a Mora Companion heavy duty. Same as a Mora Companion, it's just a lot thicker spine on it. It's almost twice as thick, I believe, as the regular Mora Companion. Anyways, this knife just happens to have the Scandi grind. You can see where the taper comes in, and it's much lower than a saber grind or what they call a high flat. and that is the Scandinavian grind. We'll go ahead and put the saber up here for comparison. See if we get them both in the shot here. You can see, get the angle right here. Whoop, get backwards. You can see how much higher this one is here on the bottom as compared to the top. This is the saber, or the high flat, on the bottom. One up here is a Scandinavian. The taper begins much closer down to the edge. You can see the two side by side there. Scandinavian, high flat or saber. This is a Schrade SCH 56, and I've only used this knife a couple of times. I absolutely love it. It came with a molded sheath and a ferrule rod with holder on the side. It's actually not bad at all. It has a nice heft to it. It's really good. It's micarta handle scales, a nice fat spine on it, and this is a high carbon steel, the same as the Mora is also high carbon steel, Swedish steel, and really nice knife. I've only used it a few times. I'm always drawn to my $8 cheapie, but anyways, this also has the high flat or saber grind. You can see how it begins much higher. Scandinavian would be down about here. And just to compare the two, once again, there we go. You can see the difference between the two. Scandinavian here on top, much further down towards the edge. That's the saber, or high flat. So those are the differences between the two. And there's other grinds. There's a convex grind, which is a very durable edge, but it's much harder to maintain, much harder to sharpen that. You actually need to use, some people use a mouse pad, which is foam, and they put like 2,000 grit sandpaper over the top of the mouse pad, and then the convex grind has a roll. It's a roll on the edge, so you can kind of pull on the sandpaper, not push, but pull and roll in order to get that edge on there. A regular flat stone is very difficult to put an edge on a convex. The flat saber grinds are very easy to sharpen, and those are my two personal favorites, are the saber and the Scandi. If you have a favorite of your own, more power to you. We all kind of choose the knife that works for us, and if it gets a job done, that's all that really counts. Okay, so I didn't bring a sharpening stone out here. Everybody kind of has their own personal preferences as far as stones go, and so whatever works for you, and if it puts a good edge on your knife. Some people use the diamond sharpeners, and there's all types of different things. There's also sharpeners that hold your blade at a certain angle, 12 degrees, 15 degrees, whatever it happens to be. And I've never used one of those. I'm not really a big gear guy. My entire survival / bushcrafting / bug out model it revolves around simplicity and a fairly minimal amount of gear. So I don't bog myself down with a lot. There's a lot of junk out there, and it's my personal opinion that an over dependence upon gear can get you killed. It creates a false sense of security, and I think it detracts from learning a lot of skills. So I keep things pretty simple, and I don't have any of the fancy gear. I've been freehand sharpening knives since I was a kid. I was taught by an old timer many years ago, and freehand sharpening is kind of a lost art nowadays. Like I said, a lot of people, they're using They either simply don't sharpen their knives, or they use the sharpeners that hold it at a certain angle, and the only way that I know is to freehand, and so that's what I'm going to demonstrate and discuss today. Now, what I have here, this is a ceramic honing rod, and I get these off of eBay. I don't even remember what I paid for this, probably $3.50. I have longer ones. This one I brought for demonstration purposes today. The ceramic basically lasts forever if you take care of it. Now, these are brittle. If you drop them on a hard surface, they will break, and once they break, they're obviously pretty much ruined. When you use these, it's going to remove a very minimal amount of steel from the edge of your blade, and the rod will eventually turn black or dark in color, and that's all the fine metal shavings. And as that builds up on the rod, it's going to clog the pores in the rod itself, and it becomes less efficient. So the way to clean a ceramic honing rod is to use a green Scotch-Brite, just like what you would use to clean your kitchen with. Wet the rod or immerse it under water, and then just give it a nice light scrubbing, and all that black will come right off, and it'll open the pores back up. Set the rod aside, let it dry, and you're good to go. Now, there's different ways of using one of these rods. Some people plant it onto a solid surface. They run the blade of their knife down and then down on the other side, doing it that way. If that's the way you prefer to use it, fine. There's also, I believe, there's wooden holders that have holes in them, and you stick the rods in, and they hold them at a certain angle, and you can run the rod, your knife down the rods and sharpen it that way. I don't own anything like that, for the simple fact that it's not going to fit in my backpack or my bug out bag, and I'm not going to take something like that out into a primitive situation, whether it's short term, medium term, or long term, such as a bug out scenario. So again, I try to keep things simplistic and what I call sustainable, things that are going to keep working out in the bush. I don't want to carry around a big block of wood taking up room in my backpack, in other words, that these rods would fit into. So freehand sharpening is it's mostly instinctual, and you just have to get a feel for it. Basically, when you lay your knife down, in other words, you don't want to go back so far that you're bringing your edge up off the rod, because then you're going to be laying the edge of your knife on your taper here. Okay, then if you go too high, okay, you're going to be actually blunting your edge instead of sharpening. So you just have to mess around when you freehand sharpen. You want to follow that edge, this shiny area here. You want to have that flat on your sharpening surface, and this knife's already sharp, so I don't need to sharpen it, but for demonstration purposes, what I do, I hold my rod and I bring my edge of my fingers down towards the bottom, so they're just so past the top. And if you do use this method, be very careful so you don't cut yourself, and you're just basically letting the weight of the knife lay on the rod. You're not digging in. You don't have to dig in and muscle through it. Just let it go. And I've been sharpening so long, I can just look at it and feel when it's at the correct angle. And again, when you freehand sharpen, it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be exact. It's still going to come out. You're still going to come out with a sharp blade. And I take my time. I draw it across, just like this. Just like that. Flip it over, okay, and just let the weight of the knife ride right across the rod, just like that. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you the right degrees to rock it up on, because every knife's a little bit different. I believe it was 12 or 15 degrees or something like that. But when you freehand sharpen, that's kind of irrelevant. This is basically all by feel. So you're going to bring it across right to the tip. Just take your time. Let the weight of the knife ride on the rod. That's all you have to do. And I usually run it through, I'll run a blade through, I don't know, half a dozen times on each side. I really like the honing rods. The ceramic really, you can see a little bit of that. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up there. There it is. That little bit of black. That's a little bit of metal that was removed from the edge. Run my thumb over that. And like I said, this knife was already sharp. You should never allow your knife blade to get completely dull, because then you're going to have to use a sharpening stone to bring that edge back, and in the process you're going to be removing a fair amount of metal from this edge. You can, if you maintain your knife after every few times of using it, I've seen a lot of guys, all they use is a sharpening stone, okay? And you don't have to do that to bring your edge back on a knife. If you constantly use a sharpening stone, you're removing metal unnecessarily from the edge of your blade. There's no reason for it. The easiest way to restore the edge on your knife after every few times of using it is to strop it. Now there's stropping, you can buy strops, or you can make one. I've seen guys use a block of wood, they take a strip of leather, they glue it on there, and they use a polishing compound and different grits, and draw their blade across and everything, and that's fine and well. If you have something like that, more power to you. Me personally, again, sustainability, minimal gear, sustainability in the bush. I'm not going to carry a block of wood with a piece of leather on there. So what I do, and I'm going to move this stuff out of the way, and I'm going to demonstrate to you guys how I personally strop my knives, and they come out very sharp. After you run your knife blade on a stone or a honing rod, it's always best to strop it. And when we strop a blade, we're polishing this edge. We're taking away all the little micro burrs and things that you can't see with the naked eye, and we're polishing this edge up. And that's when you really start putting a nice fine edge to your blade, and it gets nice and sharp. Before I show you how to strop, if you're in the bush and you don't have anything to use, find yourself a nice smooth stone. This one is very smooth here. It has a nice flat area on top, which you guys can see right there. And this side here is nice and flat right on top. This will work perfect. You could put a little saliva on here and use it as a sharpening stone, or you can just use some water, whatever you have to wet it, and draw your blade across here. And this thing is going to work perfectly. It's a nice fine stone, and something like this in a survival situation, bushcrafting, bug out situation, whatever it may be, this is going to work perfectly to sharpen a blade. Just a little tip there. Nature provides just about everything we need. One other thing before we get to the stropping. Another little tip here. Stop buying honing oil. You go to a sporting goods store, you buy a bottle of honing oil. It's usually an ounce. It's a small bottle, and I don't know, $6, $7, $8 for a bottle of honing oil. Honing oil is nothing more than repurposed mineral oil. No kidding. Go to your drugstore, Okay. Pick yourself up a bottle of mineral oil. This is 16 ounces. I think I paid, it was less than $2 for this bottle. 16 ounces. This is a lifetime supply of mineral oil. Mineral oil is a good honing oil for sharpening your blade. Also, this is food grade mineral oil, which means it is ingestible, so it can be used as a laxative. It even says on the bottle. So it has a medicinal use there to relieve constipation. And another purpose that this can be used for is you can use it to lubricate your blades, which is very important in the case of a high carbon steel blade, such as my Mora or the Schrade. And this knife, the Mora, I already have a layer of mineral oil on the blade. And high carbon steel blades will rust much more readily than the stainless steel. Matter of fact, I've never put any lubricant on that blade, and I've never had any rust issues, even though there is some metal showing. But the carbon steel, it's a different story. These require more maintenance. So dip your finger in your mineral oil, rub it on, and mineral oil is a little thicker and a little sticky, which is good. It's going to stick to your blade. Also, carbon steel, this one hasn't done it, but it'll start turning black after a period of time. That's a patina, and that's good. If you see red rust, that's not good. You want to remove that. But a nice black patina on a carbon steel blade, it will actually protect the metal beneath it. So that's another little tip there. Save you some money with the mineral oil. Okay, so what I do is, when I strop on a leather belt, and one more thing before we get to the belt, if you don't have a leather belt, which you should, a nice thick genuine leather belt, and it'll last you for years. If you don't, there's other ways you can strop. You can strop your blade on a piece of cardboard. This is the sheath that goes with my knife, and this is a real heavy nylon webbing. This can be used to strop with very easily. Put it down nice and flat, and when you strop, you're not cutting in like on a sharpening stone, like you're trying to shave off a piece of the stone. You're pulling backwards. You're going to strop just like this. Press down, rock it up, and the edge geometry isn't as critical when you strop as it is when you sharpen. So you're not going to hurt your blades. You can actually rock it up onto that blade a little bit, press, and draw it in. Draw it backwards, just like this. This won't work as well as a piece of leather, but it will get the job done. It may take a little bit longer if you have webbing on your backpack, on your straps, or whatever. Like I have my little fire kit here. It's my little one of my little kits. This has nylon webbing. It can be used for the same purpose here, to strop a blade, and it will work. I'm going to show you guys how I personally do it. You may have a method that works better for you, and if it gets your blades nice and sharp, more power to you. Definitely stick with your method. I'm certainly not the final word on this by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do is, I get up here, make sure I'm in frame for you guys. I take my buckle, and this is a belt that I've had for probably, it's a genuine leather belt. I've had this for probably, oh God, 12 years probably, at least. I take my buckle, I place this down underneath my shoe. That's my anchor point. I take this, I roll it around my hand. Now I have the fuzzy side, the unfinished side the belt is what I strop on, the inside of it. You have your finished side, which is smoother. Some guys want the smooth side, they use that. If that works better, by all means use it. Do what works for you. So I pull on it to get it fairly taut. I take my blade, lay it on, and pull up. Flip it over and go all the way down with it. And you can press into the belt and up and down. Up and down with it. Take as many passes as you need, and you'll feel that edge getting sharper. I mean, you can 6, 8, 10 passes, and you'll feel a noticeable difference on your blade. And like I was saying a little bit ago, you don't have to sharpen your blade if you maintain it properly. You'll pretty much never have to put a stone to it. Sharpening stone. Every few times after you use it, just strop it. It'll bring the edge right back to life, and it'll greatly extend the life of your knife. You're not removing metal. When we're doing this here, we're just polishing. We're not grinding the metal down. And this dude is sharp. This is really feeling good. This is how you do it with a leather belt. You know, it's an ideal kit is a kit that contains parts or components that have multiple uses in your survival or bushcrafting gear. So in this instance, it's a belt, obviously, but also it's my knife sharpener, and this works really well. I've been doing this for years. Like I said, I grew up out in the country, and I was fortunate to have grown up around some old timers, and they taught me some really cool tricks. This thing is like really sharp, you know, $8 flea market knife. I've got my bow over here on the ground, and some redwood actually. As soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to do a bow drill video. I'm trying to burn through some wood that I've had for a while. Let's see if this guy's gonna... Shaves the hair right off my arm. I mean, this is... the leather belt always serves me well. I just use a honing rod. I use a honing rod and strop it on that leather, and it literally works great. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did making it for you, and I definitely appreciate your viewership and support. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you guys very soon on the next one. I'm actually getting ready to do a bow drill video here in just a few seconds, so I will see you guys very soon. Have a great evening or day, depending on where you're located. See you soon. Bye-bye.